For all of you who listen to Submersion and own an Android device, go to the Google Play Store and download the Podcast Republic app. It's a fantastic app that allows you to get all of your favorite podcasts directly on your Android device. I personally use the app and I love it. I can search for the podcast I want to listen to, select it as a favorite, and have it just a click away. Make sure you select Submersion as a favorite so you don't miss any of our new episodes every Thursday. Again, the app is the Podcast Republic app, available on Android devices.
Episode 102.
Oh, yeah.
Woo! There we go. Someone chime in with the woo, because we never miss it.
Might have blew out some speakers on that one. Hopefully Levelator clears that up for us.
Oh, that'll be nice.
Not a sponsor.
Levelator. I don't think they're in business anymore. Free software.
It is free software. Freeware. Freeware. And... This is an interesting trio, right? At one point, Brom, you did a whole countdown on the different sets of hosts and stuff like that. I don't know how many times it's been this set of hosts.
This is a first. I did pull it up because I figured you might ask about it.
Wow, we're on the same wavelength.
We've never had the Jamie Brom Alex combo. So
oh my god! And this is a very special episode too for Alex because. Do you want to go? Are we announcing the potential change to the nickname?
I really hope so. Yes. I mean, but we can also wait for the other half, just so it's no.
It's better if we announce it with not the other half.
Okay. Well,
it's much better.
Are we announcing that there's a nickname change, or are we announcing the nickname change?
So the nickname. So right now, like as everyone knows, we got El Capitan, we got the Ointment, we got Brom. What was yours again?
The artist formerly known as Brom.
The artist formerly known as Brom, and then A to Z, the Gruesome Twosome. So you're one half of the Gruesome Twosome.
That's correct. Yep.
Setting you guys up for your own spin-off podcast someday.
You know, it's funny.
Also, just for the listeners, I want to be clear. The twos in that A to Z, that's a 2. That's a numeral 2. The Gruesome 2, the numeral some.
Oh, yeah. I like that. Zach and I, we had always joked years before we even did this podcast that we would have a radio show called BS with A to Z in the AM or something like that. So it was really funny when you mentioned that earlier in the text group, Jamie, because I was like, how fitting. It's like you knew us all along.
Exactly. And yeah, so...
We'll also have to think of a name for our new super team. This trio will need a title. So we can think about it. You don't have to come up with something, but just some inspiration. Some of the other ones were 2.5 Seamen, the OGs, the Submersible Boys, the Trusty Trio, Periscope Posse, the Classic Submergers. That's very Marvel-esque. So we'll have to come up with something for the three of us. Something that plays to all our strengths. That was a countdown. It was my top 5 submersion super teams. There were, I think, 11 of them though, but we ran them all down. Every different combination of hosts that we've ever had.
We could brainstorm it, but I feel like we should go kind of down the same lines. A plus B equals O for Ointment. I don't know.
No, we're gonna have to workshop it.
Okay, Kyle, edit that out.
But yeah, it was time to get rid of the Mustard Man because my mom sent me a text the other day and all it said is, "Hey, Mustard Man, the first movie you ever saw was Hunt for Red October. You were a baby." And I was like, I don't want my mom calling me Mustard Man, so it went too far, so it's got to change.
What if she starts calling you Gruesome Twosome?
Well...
I guess we might revisit this conversation in a few months.
Yeah, we might be redoing that. Yeah, so I don't know if she listened to the podcast or what she's been doing.
That'd be unfortunate.
She called me the Mustard Man, but I mean, fitting that my very first movie I ever saw was The Hunt for Red October. So maybe that's why that's been one of my top 3 submarine movies of all time. Because my first movie I've ever seen.
There you go. I'd have to ask my parents if they know which one they brought me to. They brought me to a lot, though. I remember them telling me that.
Yeah. Well, this is normally where Kyle would set out some awoogas. Awooga, awooga, dive, 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 dive.
Yeah, and if without him, it would be Zach, and we don't have the soundboard going either. Right. Alex, we're going to need you to do some heavy lifting tonight. So be ready.
Dive, 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 dive.
What began as an innocent conversation among friends would soon spiral out of control and later be referred to by future generations as the 8th wonder of the modern world, Mac East Studios takes you on the journey of your lifetime as your captains Alex the artist formerly known as Brom, Jamie the Ointment, Kyle El Capitan, and Zach Bone present Submersion.
All right. So this is kind of an interesting one.
Post Apocalyptic Movie Month.
Yeah. Take us through what we watched this time.
All right. Yeah, this is week 2. Last week we watched Resident Evil 5. This week we've gone with a more like, I don't know what you'd call this, kind of like a indie comedy or dark comedy, channeling
Certainly indie. Definitely indie.
Yeah, sort of channeling the vibes of like a Wes Anderson kind of style. And it is called The Fitzroy. Came out in 2017.
Yeah, and this is something that I don't think anyone would possibly have heard of, but it's not quite the same as when we watch something like Subdown starring Stephen Baldwin, because that's a movie no one can actually watch. Like, you've never heard of it, and you can't watch it. This is readily available. This is on, if you have Amazon Prime, you can watch it, even though this movie is very tiny.
We watched this one on Tubi TV, though. Free.
Oh, is this right? This was Tubi? And it's also on Amazon, or is it on Tubi? Just Tubi?
It's on Amazon.
I can't confirm the Amazon part.
$2. Yeah, I think it was Amazon, yeah.
Well,
so
Tubi TV for free
with
with a couple ads. So free streaming for people that want to get caught up on this one.
Yeah, so it's kind of an interesting movie all around, and I'll get to some of it in the trivia, but I mean, it's tiny, really small budget, micro-budget film, I think they'd call it. One of those films that was actually crowdsource funded to be able to make it, and yet entirely set on a submarine. So
it looked pretty good. It looked pretty competent.
Right. Yes. No, I agree with that. And I'll get to that when we're actually reviewing the movie as well, because I was fairly impressed with how professional it looked. And I guess that's maybe the age that we're in. Even something that I think it's like $100,000 it was made for, with actors I actually legitimately recognized. Like the guy who runs the or the owner of the Fitzroy, who gets murdered. Spoiler alert.
Yeah.
He's one of the dads
Cecil.
in it's a British television show that's on Netflix that I really like. They came out with a couple movies, but now the name is slipping my mind. But I knew him. I was like, oh my God, that's the dad from that TV show that I watched. And then two of the other actors were pretty notable as well. Because originally when I was coming into this, I was like, Phantom Zone's going to be a mess. Like I'll never get Phantom Zone. But actually it was really easy to do Phantom Zone.
Oh, I was asking Alex if this was going to be a difficult one for you.
No, it wasn't. It was perfectly fine.
Well, very good. We talked about some of the professional looking components. I think it starts here with the title credits is one of the nicer features. I would maybe say this might be my favorite title credits, rivaling which one was it? Voyage? Not what was the?
It was Fantastic Voyage.
Yeah. This one was pretty good itself.
And this one actually did. It won some awards for that. And when you're watching it, you actually, I was like, why didn't they just make an animated film? Because like the animation and stuff was really cool, and you could imagine having it all been an animated film, and it was kind of fit still in that same vibe. I mean, Wes Anderson has made several stop motion animation films and stuff like that, so you can get that vibe out of it.
And it served a dual purpose, of course, introducing the movie, but it also did the exposition of kind of setting the stage for what has taken place in this world that has been created. In the Fitzroy, there has been a poisonous gas that has covered the world and has created this post-apocalyptic landscape.
So it was definitely the world was covered by it?
I believe the world. I mean,
that's why I have a question mark. Worldwide apocalypse.
Yeah, it's hard to know for sure. I mean, they don't give a whole lot more than that, which I kind of actually liked. It's one of the more interesting things with the film is they just kind of set the whole exposition up within the confines of the title credits, and then
they're
just kept it
not
moving.
particularly clear either about when it takes place, because apparently it's in the 50s, right?
That's what the synopsis says, but they don't say anything specific in the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a little tougher. It was harder I think it was harder to convey that Because it could have been, I mean, just a Wes Anderson film takes place in modern day, but everything looks like it's some from Alien World or something like that. Like some time has been lost, a lot of 80s and 70s and stuff mixed in with modern day stuff. So you could have imagined this being just a film that was set present day and not necessarily the 1950s. But yeah, apparently it was in the past, worldwide apocalypse. The owners, bellboy, tenants, and some of the people in town are all gathered up, and they make their way to a Soviet submarine that has appeared for some reason off the coast. Empty, apparently. No one's in it. Because they just all pile in, and they set up the hotel, the Fitzroy. And they run it mostly on getting quote-unquote money from long-term tenants, so people who just live in the submarine forever. And the money now is tea. So that's one of the jokes, is that in England, the world has collapsed, and so everything's paid for in tea, which is in limited supply. So they're not getting any more tea. So now tea is traded as if it were like gold. They pay their rent in tea. They bribe people with tea.
Tea and biscuits. They got some of the little like dinner dessert wafers and stuff too, which is like the supreme luxurious resource. Yeah.
And then so we open up and basically it's a day in the life of the bellboy, whose name was
Bernard.
Bernard. Said Bernard. Bernard is serving breakfast, which is more or less just anonymous cans of food. And everyone's kind of hoping they get meat. They never get meat. They always just get prunes. And he kind of saves meat, which is really dog food, for his special lady. That's Sonia, who he has a bit of a crush on. She's a former lounge singer or a star of some sort. She she was famous enough to have a record made because he plays a record that she had. And he's in love with her, so he tries to kind of be sweet to her and give her things and stuff like that. Even though everyone kind of makes fun of Bernard because he's a bit of a weakling.
Yeah, a little pushover.
Doesn't have a backbone.
Pushover.
Yeah, he doesn't have a backbone. The owner is Sissel, played by David Schaal, who The In-Betweeners was the show that he was in.
That's one I was going to guess. I couldn't think of the name either.
Yeah, and then so Cecil, he owns the thing, and he's always badgering the bellboy, kind of like saying how he's just a piece of shit or whatever, even though he's clearly the only one kind of keeping things running. Cecil really just keeps things running by forcing people to pay rent and being really, really stingy with the rent and making sure like everyone's always paying the pound of flesh to him. And then otherwise, if you don't have it, as is the case with Sonia, he gets it in the form of sex, which is unpleasant because he is an unpleasant person. And so he's basically like blackmailing her into having sex with him. And then there's other people on the submarine. I'm not sure how many we should go through. I guess there's the general, the captain, who's like clearly a former Nazi captain of some sort, who is good friends with a chicken that he has, Henrietta, I think. Was the name, and he's crazy. Then there's an actual crazy person who just yells doom all the time, and it's pretty aggravating. I wish that character was not in the
I feel like film. I recognized him. Of anyone in the movie?
He was actually, he's a prominent actor.
Oh, okay.
Both those, the captain and the Doom guy were both prominent actors. They were the ones that you're able to pretty easily use for Phantom Zone because they're well known. Who else is on there? There's the older lady who's got like a bird, and one of the early scenes we see Bernard kind of she needs some help with the bird, and he comes in and the bird is dead, and it's made clear that the reason it died was because of the gas from outside. She has a leak in the room, and he takes care of it and all that. But I think it's supposed to show like he's the only one keeping things together, in a comic fashion.
Cecil's wife, did you mention her?
No, she was actually my least favorite.
Yeah.
She was way over the top, and But yeah, she's kind of like a unpleasant woman.
Oh, there was
Clearly,
the band.
They don't like each other.
There's like
and there's a whole band. I was
tiny
gonna say
band.
this. I feel like there's a whole bunch of people on the submarine, but there's not actually many characters because there's a whole band that kind of plays along. It's again in that Wes Anderson kind of way.
Very Wes Anderson way. Yes.
You have this band that kind of is providing the soundtrack,
like totally breaking
almost in real life.
the third wall, or
Right.
is that what it's called? I think so. Like they would actually
fourth wall,
narrate
yeah.
fourth wall. Thank you, with what's actually going on in the scene. Yep.
And then, so like, you have the cymbal player who just wants to use his cymbals, but he never gets to because they're on a submarine, and that would be loud. And then there's some honeymooners. That's another one of the opening scenes. They get a call, and they've got guests, and it's this huge event because they never have guests. They only have these long-term tenants. And so he goes out to the beach, Bernard, to pick them up. There's a crazy lady there that they've chained up because she was not being good. And they kicked her off the submarine, and she keeps on wanting to get back on. But these honeymooners are basically looking for vacation in an apocalypse. So they found this submarine hotel. They go on to it, and this is going to be their special treat. They pay. They're shown they're wealthy. They pay in Darjeeling tea, a very, very fine tea. And then, but the husband seems like a bit of a dope, and seems like he kind of sucks. And the wife basically just wants, I guess, entertainment. So even on the fly, they're like, "Oh, what's entertainment here?" And they're like, "There's no entertainment." But Cecil kind of like, in a snap of fingers, is like, "No, we're having a big show, a talent show." And so that's something that's set up for later in the film, that we're going to be seeing this talent show. What happens now? Sonia is getting beat up by Cecil. What happens? What's kind of the impetus of the plot at this point? I'm kind of losing the thread until the talent show a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, it's not introduced yet that Sonia wants to kill Cecil, right? Is that? I think she
mentions it. She mentions it offhand.
Well, the inspector shows up in here.
Oh, there we go. So the inspector shows. So there's also a hotel inspector. Yeah. So the next morning, the honeymoon couple goes out and wants to sit on the beach, and so they go out to sit on the beach. And while they're there, a new quote unquote guest shows up, and it's the inspector, and he's kind of supposed to be an intimidating figure because he comes from the hotel inspection company. And he can kind of make or break the hotel, I guess. This is just set up in a way that he can do whatever he wants. He's the police officer. He's everything in this world now. That's an apocalypse. Like, he could even take the hotel away from the owners if he finds that it's not up to snuff. So even while like Bernard is like keeping everything together, it's a hunk of junk submarine. So things are breaking all the time, and the inspector's taking these notes, and so everyone's getting real nervous with the inspector. And the inspector, as I said, it's like he wields a lot of power. So immediately Sonia starts to take a shine, even as she's manipulating Bernard into this potential plan to kill Cecil and like take over the submarine. She has a second, whatever in the fire, another thing cooking with the inspector as another way for her to obtain the hotel. Her end goal is to get the hotel. So now she has Bernard and the inspector potentially working for her in that favor.
Yeah, one character I don't think you mentioned was the doctor. There's a
yes,
there's a doctor on the submarine
who is basically just a cannibal. I think. Yeah. That's the only characteristic about him is that he's a cannibal. He is clearly obsessed with the potential of dissecting and eating human beings, which is nice. And so yes, we get to the talent show, and Bernard's been telling Sonia, like, you gotta sing. Like, everyone wants to hear you sing. It's gonna be amazing. You were so great and so beautiful. Like, you've got to go and sing. And so they have this talent show, and it is horrific. Unpleasant to watch, both in the movie, by all accounts, and for me watching the movie outside of it.
Yeah, it was pretty rough. They each brought sort of each member of the sub came forward and did their little talent. There was some a ventriloquist act by the crazy doctor who had like a headless puppet that he was doing his skit with, and all the while the musical ensemble was kind of in the corner playing. I mean, it was very quaint, the setup and everything, but the acts themselves were extremely cringe-inducing.
Right. And then at the last moment, in walks Sonia, and she sings, and I couldn't tell. Could you guys tell, was this supposed to be good, or was she supposed to be like, I don't want to say like rusty, or was it supposed to be the case?
I got the feeling like she didn't have enough time to practice and
anything. She wanted to sing. She used to be this great singer. She gives this performance that is not great.
It's fine.
And but Bernard, with his like, because he's so in love, is like, in his mind it's amazing, but for everyone else, so like, Jesus, okay, thank God that's over. And she kind of runs off, upset about this, and Cecil is also upset about this. Like, oh, you're showing off, you're like doing this stuff. He's very domineering over Sonia. So Bernard comes upon the room and he's beating up Sonia. So he busts in and is like, hey, you got to stop. But he's got no backbone. So he kind of just like starts to back off, and Sonia grabs a letter opener or whatever and stabs him and kills him. Well, they think
Bernard shoves him onto her blade.
Yeah. Just to be very clear about it.
Yeah. So she's able to blame Bernard basically at a later point in the movie.
Right. And so then they think he's dead. And so the plan has more or less come together for Sonia. It's like, okay, we got to like cover this up. We got to blame it on his wife. Jealous, in a jealous rage over me, has killed Cecil, but they need to do some more work to make this like make any sense. So they move him to where he commonly sleeps. They take out the letter opener, which would clearly indict Sonia or implicate Sonia, and then they use a kitchen knife to re-stab him. And as they're doing this, he wakes up and is clearly not dead, and so they have to stab him again and kill him. So that was actually a fairly amusing scene, that he hadn't been dead at all. He had just been like unconscious or whatever. And then they go to bed and are basically like waiting for someone to discover this murder. At this point, we get the weird dream sequence, I believe.
Yes.
Yeah, where Bernard imagines himself having sex with Sonia, and it turns into Cecil, and all kinds of kooky stuff happen, and they awaken to the screams of murder. So they're all prepared, Bernard and Sonia, they're prepared to approach and make their case for why it's not that they are actually the murderers, when it turns out that it's actually Henrietta the chicken who has been killed. And oh yeah, and I guess we forgot to mention, it's because like the crazy person had to move into the room with the captain, was so annoyed with the chicken that he killed Henrietta. It's obvious, but the inspector, seeing that there's a murder afoot, has decided to take it upon himself to do the investigation, even though he's
a hotel inspector.
Poorly equipped. Yeah, he's not a police officer. So he's dumb as shit and has no idea what's going on, and just likes the power. He's basically power hungry and sees this opportunity and is like, great, I'm going to like investigate. So while they're doing that, they discover the other murder as well. And so now they're convinced it's some kind of serial killer that's on the loose. It must be someone in the submarine, obviously. And so he begins his investigation, which is more or less a way to do various bribes. Like he's bribed by the wife of Cecil, the other owner of the submarine. And there's some tea and stuff like that. So he's all set to blame Sonia for the murder, in accordance with what the wife wants, because she wants her out of there anyways. And then at the same time, Sonia is kind of starting to approach or give the eyes to the inspector to get her on her side. So when it all comes down to it, he's ready to just like blame Sonia. They have a whole meeting. I'm going to announce who the killer is. She points to, oh no, is this even the part? No, this isn't yet, because then they have the doctor do an autopsy. So the doctor is doing an autopsy on Cecil and clearly indicates being a crazy person, but also the smartest person on the submarine. It's like, obviously you guys did it to Bernard and Sonia. And they confront him about that. And they're like, what will it take for you to shut your mouth? Realizing that it's not working, they tie him up, hit him over the head, tie him up, and shove him into they Brom him basically.
Yep, give him the Brom treatment.
Yes, just like do the classical Brom and shove him up into that torpedo tube. And at this point, they're feeling pretty good about it. They're nervous, obviously. Feeling pretty good about themselves. Bernard at this point is practicing. He's like taking his dick out of his pants. Like, okay, I'm the captain now. Assuming that he's going to become the captain of this hotel. And they get all into a room. The inspector's going to announce what's going on. And he's going to finger Sonia because of the wife wants him to. But all of a sudden, Bernard, weak-willed Bernard, stands up and is like, I'm guilty. I was the one who did it. It's not her, it's me. And so that starts the end of the climax of the movie, where basically he goes on trial. Everyone is hating on him. Mm-hmm. They're just like, yeah, it's an easy scapegoat. Everything's good.
So Sonia's quick to throw him under the bus.
Yeah, using the inspector to potentially get the hotel, because he also, taking this opportunity, he's like, okay, yes, the wife is not capable to run the hotel, so I'll put Sonia in charge, and also maybe like take over the boat for the hotel inspector corporation or whatever it is, and we can have our fun on this hotel together. And they have the trial. He's clearly getting railroaded, and also they're pinning the chicken thing on him. Sonia's, just like bad mouthing him. Everyone's talking shit, and he's clearly going to be convicted, and he's found guilty. And they're going to hang him by the neck.
Yeah, the old crazy lady's in his corner and pleads his case. Yeah. But
which is a little interesting. I'm not really sure the point of all that.
Well, it does show, well, I mean, what you'll get to it where just he and the crazy lady were the only two that were on the boat to escape.
At first.
Right. Yeah, which we'll get to.
So anyways.
But yeah, they convict him, and the inspector sentences him to death by hanging.
Yeah. So they put him over a pipe, and obviously being a ramshackle piece of shit submarine, it crashes to the ground. He's not actually killed. He gets up, and the inspector, enraged, is going to shoot him. And everyone's going nuts, and the cymbal guy is playing his cymbals and stuff like that. And just as he tries to shoot Bernard, it ricochets off the cymbal somehow and punctures the submarine. And the gas is coming in, and also at this point, they're gonna start sinking because of the damage to the boat. And so everyone's freaking out. They're trying to escape. They're trying to evacuate. And in their like panic, they're kind of like messing. They're making it impossible for them to get it out. Bernard is able to subdue the inspector and grab the gun. And then with the lady that came to his aid, is able to go to the front and force his way out of the boat. And at first it looks like just him and the older lady are going to escape. But she kind of is like, Bernard, and he, weak-willed as he is like, fine, and brings everyone on board. They're all like, wait, where's the inspector and the doctor? And the last thing we see is the submarine sinking and the doctor clearly going to eat the inspector. And they're all on this tiny, tiny little boat, and there's a leak, and it's implied that they might die, but Bernard's life is still shit.
And then, a big black vignette closes in on him, kind of completing the whole 1950s look, I guess.
Yeah. So that's it. That was the Fitzroy. I don't know.
It was a weird one.
Yeah.
Got to
applaud. Do you want to start off? With some reviews?
Sure. I was about to say, you got to applaud the uniqueness. I mean, we certainly haven't seen anything close to this other than, something like an actual, Wes Anderson film with The Life Aquatic, where it was just kind of that weird off the wall kind of black comedy, set at sea. So it was definitely unique, definitely had a lot of time spent on a sub, had its charms. There was the title credits, which I thought, again, were very impressive, and I liked how it served to set up the exposition for the whole film and do so in a artistic and creative, clever way. totally got what was going on, and you got enough that you weren't really asking questions or caring much more. You know, you were able to piece together a few of the other things that, you know, this is kind of a little old-timey. You couldn't tell exactly what year they were in without reading, I guess, the synopsis afterward. But it did enough to set up the rest of the film so the film could kind of get going. And I thought sort of the first, you know, bits of it were fine up to and through the introduction of the inspector. I thought it was kind of funny how he was kind of propped up as, you know, because he's from the council or whatever. He's like judge, jury, and executioner in this world. And he wore all the hats on the boat of, you know, if you need an authority figure, he's stepping up to the plate to do it. And he's, you know, your balding, mustachioed sort of, you know, British, you know, inspector. So it had some charms like that, but I think for the most part, it was aimless at times and a little clumsy. It looked nice. I mean, I like some of the set design. It really felt like a play. Not as bad as like a school play, which is something I was teasing about in the chat. But you know, a nicer, you know, stage performance. It felt like that kind of writing and that kind of caliber of acting as well. Everything was a little too over the top. Every character was truly a character. You know, there wasn't many, you know, sort of straight men on the ship. Everyone was just a little bit too ridiculous. You know, it was like there's the mad inspector and there's the mad doctor and there's the mad captain and the mad submarine owner. Everything was like the insane version of itself, and it was kind of forcing everyone to kind of take a back seat as everyone kind of, you know, chewed the scenery a little bit and went a little overboard. And ultimately it just ended up being a really weird and awkward movie. And the story, you know, it was kind of just ridiculous and aimless and didn't really have like a whole meaning, message or plot really. And kind of lackluster ending, just kind of threw it together, it felt like there at the end, but had some merits, so I got to give it some points for that, and a lot of time on the sub. But ultimately, I think I'm going to go with I'm going to give it a 3.5.
Okay. Yeah, I can jump in here. I mean, I think what you say is more or less right. I think you have to be impressed with what they were able to do, not only on a micro budget, but just in general, the competence in which they were able to put together a feature film, and work with legitimate actors and kind of put it together in a way that makes it look like if you said, "Oh, this is you know, just like one of those independent features by someone who's done has a few films under their belt," I wouldn't have blinked and said like, "What? This seems like a first film." It doesn't seem like a first film. It seems like something done by people who know what they're doing and can put it together and everything like that. But that being said, it's and Kyle can edit this out if we're going to get them on for an interview. But I mean, it's not perfect. I think, yeah, as you say, like the some of the side characters, honestly, I could have done without most of them, other than I think Cecil and Bernard and Sonia, and even the older lady. I thought she was quite good, but the other ones are just a little over the top and honestly a little aggravating to have on screen. I didn't love even their like having to watch them because it is a little cringy to watch a bunch of them. The guy
screaming doom and the band, you know. Yeah.
Even the honeymooners, like the guy, they had like a brief glimpse of like a sex scene with them, and it's like I didn't love all that stuff, but I thought Bernard nicely cast. He did a good job. I like the guy who played Cecil from In-Betweeners and stuff like that. He's funny. And then I thought the casting for Sonia was particularly good, just because I think she really looked the part and played the part well as kind of this post-apocalyptic, former voluptuous kind of seductress that I think for someone like Bernard, it makes sense that he's kind of obsessed with her. Even if, you know, she's still, in the scope of what the movie is, she's more or less just seducing a 2-star hotel submarine owner. Like that's the extent of her seductressness. Like she's not some crazy James Bond seductress. Like she's a 2-star. She's supposed to be a 2-star seductress, and yet Bernard is like obsessed with her. And I feel like she really fit that quality in the way she played it out and stuff like that. Yeah. So there's some positives there, some negatives there. I was going to come in a little higher than you. I do feel like this fits in line with something. It's gonna be weird to say, but what we did last week with Resident Evil, where visually I feel like there's a lot to say.
Yeah.
With some of the stuff you get to enjoy, just fun stuff you get to enjoy, it's there, but the story just doesn't work very well. So I was going to actually come in at a similar spot to there, just below, kind of midway at something like I guess like a 4. I think I gave 4.5 to Resident Evil. That makes sense. This is more like a 4.
Yep. That's where I was between a 3.5 and a 4.
All right.
Bring us
Gruesome
home,
Alex. What do you got?
Well, upon immediately watching this, like I think I texted the group, was like, does anyone else felt uncomfortable watching it? And
again, Kyle, edit this out. If we got anybody coming on.
We loved it.
I did end up watching the whole film, where for most of the films that we get through, if I start feeling that way, I'll just turn it off and stop. But this one I actually finished all the way through. When I read the synopsis, I was kind of intrigued originally because it sounded pretty good, and I love black comedies to begin with, or dark humor, whichever way you want to look at it. And it's just so it's there, but it's not as much as I guess I would assume like American humor, as opposed to this was definitely more British humor. So I know theirs is already dry to begin with. So I guess my expectations were a little bit higher, so I felt a little bit let
and
down.
Actually, just to butt in there, I actually think what you say there makes a lot of sense. This feels like something that would have been a British sitcom or something at some point, like the Submarine Hotel,
right. Yeah,
almost like a Faulty Towers type thing, but like it's a little old school and very British to have a show like this or a movie like this.
Well, I even watched Faulty Towers, and I found myself laughing a lot at this. Or that show. I mean, it's old and classic. But this one, it just didn't, it didn't do it for me. One of the things that I did find pretty interesting, and the overall filmmaking quality was very high, because with it being on a submarine, you felt claustrophobic almost the entire film. Das Boot did a really good job of making you feel like that. Some other movies too, but there's also been other movies when you've been on the submarine and it feels like you're in a giant warehouse filming this, This really felt, if it really was done on a submarine, I don't know, but it immediately, you just feel claustrophobic. You feel how close and tight everybody is. And so it really gives off that feeling of being in a submarine, which that part I did, for us being a submarine podcast, I did admire that they stayed true to that. And it didn't seem too over the top with being extravagant, with this being supposedly one of the last hotels on the earth, I guess. It just very, Ben, I think you said earlier, quaint. I think that's a pretty good word for it.
Yeah, it was definitely dark and grungy, but there was still a warmness to it. I think they did a really good job with the set design for sure.
The story was really confusing. I know, Ben, you said earlier you kind of liked how they didn't really explain too much of why it was post-apocalyptic. I wish they would have just given us a little bit more, just because that question was from the very beginning of the film. You're like, okay, well, it's post-apocalyptic. Why? And that was just something that stuck with me the entire time, and you never really got a full answer. I kind of also wish there was more info or more of a storyline for that crazy girl that they had locked outside of the sub, because everyone else in the sub was pretty crazy. And so for her to actually be chained up out there, is she really crazy or was she normal and we just don't know?
Oh, well, that's a good question.
That's actually a good point. I like that idea. The other possibility I thought was they mentioned how someone had just died because of a broken air filter, and I wonder if
it was her.
Well, that like maybe they lived in the room together. She broke the air filter, the guy died, and she gets chained up outside. And that's kind of like the punishment for having killed one of the guests. Because they said there's only one open room, kind of. But
right, that's right.
Yeah, that's cool. I like that idea. I think that was the bigger question for me than what actually caused it. Because I think they did it in such a smart way that like you found out like almost immediately after they did the intro credits, and then they don't talk about it like in the first 5 to 10 minutes that you kind of understand like, oh, they're never going to talk about it. Like the title credits were the exposition. But yeah, that woman they do show and introduce, but then they never give you a background on it. So that was kind of interesting.
There is a accompanying comic they made. I think it was maybe 6 issues, or maybe that was the plan. I know at least one of them was released. So, but I'm not sure it has much to do with the current situation. Like, I'm not sure you'd actually find out much about that lady. I think it's a parallel storyline involving the Fitzroy. So, I don't know. But yeah, they also did make some comic book stuff.
Interesting.
So you could find out?
Yeah, we could. Maybe after reading it, maybe it might raise my score higher. You never know. Anyways, long story short, I think I'm going to give it a 3.5, just like Ben. Not my favorite.
That makes sense.
Not my absolute worst film. I got through it. It had just enough kind of keeping me going instead of just turning it off. Which
and I won't even say like, regardless of whether we get them on for an interview. Oh, that's not a big deal. I think I was very impressed with what they were able to do.
I would agree.
Sometimes we watch something like Agent Red or something, and we're like, I could make this movie, and we're barely joking. Like I could probably make something that's better than Stinger. At least I would have the sense not to release it.
Right.
Yeah. I was in a independent, small film with, kind of junior filmmakers that were.
Yeah, you were like a zombie or something, right?
Yeah. And I mean, I had a few speaking parts in the film, but we fell so far short of what they were able to accomplish with this.
Right.
Like, yeah, there was a lot to be impressed by here.
For their budget, amazing, like, quality coming out of it for what their budget was. Absolutely. Yep.
All right. We don't have any love it or hate it.
I was telling Ben when I was looking at this, I think I only found like 3 reviews for the whole movie.
There's very few. Very few, and a lot of the reviews kind of come in similar to what we're saying, which is kind of an appreciation.
I just started scrolling down here through IMDb.
With some story stuff. Yeah,
and they're saying a lot of the same things. Brilliantly and interestingly shot, yet just only still a pretty good movie. And it channels a little bit of that Wes Anderson vibe. They mentioned Faulty Tower. Yeah, we're certainly not alone on it. I mean, we can see who and what the inspiration was here and what they were going for.
Duly impressed. All right, ready for some trivia?
Yep.
And again, you guys, I guess, have been on since I changed it up, but this is truly trivia. So you ready to answer some questions along with this trivia?
Sure.
All right. Portions of the filming were seen in the documentary Bid for My Life. So the actor who played the doctor, quote unquote, the doctor, the crazy doctor, James Hammer Morton, auctioned off days of his life every day, or sets of his days of his life in a month, to the highest bidder. And you can actually see this film and production of this film in some of the weblogs that are associated with that, as well as the full documentary, I guess. And so he was won, quote unquote, won by the producers and they used that day that they bid on, or the days that they bid on, for him to film his portions of the movie. I presume this is why he gets shoved into a torpedo tube at one point, because he wasn't there a lot of the days that they filmed.
Okay.
And so, yeah, you can see a bunch of the behind the scenes footage, kind of him just like walking into a random house to do makeup and costuming and stuff like that. And so, just what kind of production you're looking at. So it's kind of interesting.
That's awesome.
And so, talking about documentary films, no documentary film has ever been nominated for a Best Picture Oscar. But what documentary won the Palme d'Or at Cannes and subsequently refused to enter the Best Documentary Feature category and instead only entered the Best Picture category for the Oscars, but did not get nominated? I can give you a hint, too.
What's the one where they walk between the Twin Towers? That one.
You think Man on a Wire?
Man on the Wire.
Nope. So hint, the director also did a film that is tangentially related to one of me and Kyle's great passions in life. Think of what me and Kyle talk about sometimes, what we're doing, right?
Bowling
so he had
for
a documentary,
Columbine.
which was done by
Michael
Moore, yeah.
who also had a documentary later that he did this thing for.
Oh.
It's the George W. Bush one. Hint.
I don't know
Fahrenheit 9/11.
There we go. So that was the one. He won the Palme d'Or at Cannes, and then only entered in Best Picture. And he actually, Bowling for Columbine was the one that actually won the Oscar for Best Documentary.
Okay.
All right. The film was funded in large part through Kickstarter, raising about £70,000 for the production. It also took quite a bit of time for the campaign to go from funding all the way to release. So the funds were all raised in late 2012. This film was officially released in 2017, although back in 2015, it had started making some of the festival rounds. So I think they finished filming in 14. They were more or less done in 15. And then it took a few more years to get like an official release on things like Amazon Prime and stuff like that, and get a DVD and all that. So it's quite the journey. All right. So at this point, there are a number of notable films that have been funded partially or in full by crowdsourcing. Can anyone name one of those films? Can either of you name a film that you know?
Resident Evil 5.
No, Veronica Mars. I remember that being like a big deal.
Yes.
One of the most funded projects of all time, I think.
So yes, I believe actually that one is the highest funded movie project of all time. The other ones are Super Troopers 2, Laser Team, Anomalisa, which is interesting because it was nominated for an Oscar. Veronica Mars, Obvious Child, Blue Mountain State the Movie, which is based on a show that is both the worst show and the best show I've ever watched. Yep. It's terrible. Then there's major bonus points. Do you know what Bad Movie Twins, that's badmovietwins.com, film was crowdfunded in part? There's only one that we ever watched that was crowdfunded in part. You'll never get it.
Okay.
It is. It is Atlas Shrugged Part 3.
Atlas Shrugged?
Atlas Shrugged Part 3. Who is John Galt? Question mark.
Okay.
So it's the third part in the Atlas Shrugged series that was released by right-wing media, I guess. The first two were major motion pictures. The third one was crowdfunded and was a pile of shit.
I've never even heard of them.
How much money did that one raise?
That one raised, I think, $400,000 or $200,000 or something. Overall, the production was $5 million, and it made a whopping $800,000 at the box office.
Oh my goodness.
Yep. And then there's some other ones like The Canyons, which starred Lindsay Lohan, and I think James Dean, the porn star. And that was an official BMT, but we watched that because it was nominated for Razzies. And then Samurai Cop 2 was also crowdsourced, but it was it's a sequel to one that we've watched as part of BMT, but not an actual qualifying film. All right. The submarine in the film was U-475 Black Widow, a Soviet submarine that was originally named B-49. The new name was given when it was bought. It's kind of funny. It's a misnomer. It's a Soviet submarine, but they just decided to call it U-475 Black Widow, just for like tourist reasons, I guess.
Oh.
It's a Foxtrot class submarine according to NATO classifications. This is a hard one. What other submersion film did the submarine act in? Now the hints are think British and think actors who are British. And also think a rusty hunk of junk submarine that a British actor is trapped in.
Oh, are we talking about? No, that couldn't be it.
Wasn't there one with Jude Law? What's that movie?
Yeah.
Black Sea.
Black Sea. That's it. Good one.
Wow.
Remember
Rusty hunk of junk. The same
When
submarine.
you said Rusty Hunk and Junk, it made me think of Operation Petticoat.
Oh, that thing was a piece of junk too.
That's a Hollywood film, right?
Yeah. And that's a long time ago. So that one, I think if you saw the torpedo tubes when they load the doctor in, I think that you could probably see how the two submarines match up. Otherwise, I don't recall the filming in that submarine really feeling the same as this one, but apparently it's the same submarine.
Wow.
Then it won the Special Jury Recognition and Audience Award for Excellence in Title Design at the 2015 South by Southwest Festival. So let's do an easy one. Where is South by Southwest?
Isn't it Austin?
Yes. Now, a harder one. There was a band. What band featuring three brothers were discovered at South by Southwest in 1994 when their father took them there for an impromptu audition? Yes. Good one. Wow. How'd you know that? Do you know that story?
No, I don't know the story, but you just said three brothers in 1990s. So, I mean, that narrows it down quite a bit.
I couldn't believe that you pulled out a three-brother band and it was like Hanson, 100% done.
I know a lot of music trivia, so that one's kind of up my boat there a little bit.
And then we'll quickly do a little bit of Phantom Zone.
Engage the Phantom.
Phantom's engaged, sir.
So I thought this was going to be a stumper, but nope. The Crazy Doomsayer is actually in Firefox, a Clint Eastwood film. It's one that Patrick actually just sent me recently. It was like, tell me when you do this film, because it looks pretty nuts. It's a little hard to say how prominently the submarine plays. Clear, there's definitely some pictures, some stills from the movie where you can see a submarine sail breaking through the ice. So certainly qualifying. It's mostly about experimental planes and shit. And then the captain in the Fitzroy was also in Madame Sin, which we've used before. So each of these are easy. Because Madame Sin features Robert Wagner, who was in Austin Powers, and then Firefox features Michael Curry, who was in G.I. Jane with Jason Bega, he was just in Phantom. He was like straight up in Phantom. All right. And then the final question in association with Phantom Zone. Where do we think Ed Harris fits in this film? What role? And you can't say seductress because I already have that marked down on my list.
Absolutely.
Well, I mean, he looks closest physically to Cecil, but I don't really want to see him as that. I can't really see him as that character.
I could see him being the Doctor, a little crazy. No, actually, no. I don't think I could.
Maybe like the captain if they filled the role out a little bit more. He's like the
they had to fill it out. Otherwise, you have to be the inspector, right?
Yeah, I think so.
And the character of the inspector would be much different. It'd be a much more stoic kind of like an actual like overbearing presence that like holy shit, everyone just like fears for their life when this guy's in the room.
Yeah, or maybe that would actually be the way they play it. They'd have the inspector be like everyone's brushing him off, like a hotel inspector, whoever. But then it turns out that he's like
he shows
actually like maybe even Bernard and Sonia are like, oh, we can dupe this guy, like the inspector, like we can dupe him.
Yeah, and he
then
like
he shows up and he's fucking Ed Harris.
Takes his mask off and like his got like the fedora and the trench coat on, and he, like slowly peers up, and the shadows like lick across his face, and then you see the light illuminate his like eyes, his beady eyes staring at the owners, and everyone just kind of shakes in their boots.
Yeah, so this is actually appropriate that we're talking about Ed Harris because he was considered because he was actually already in a great film about a hotel submarine. Have you guys ever seen it? Probably not. I mean, it's called Submarine Hotel, Going Deep for Some Z's. It was an experimental film. It ran just over 57 hours. I don't know. You definitely didn't see it then. It's 57 hours long.
Nope.
And it consists entirely of footage of Ed Harris sleeping on a submarine. So 48 hours into it, the director became concerned because Ed had not moved or awoken the entire time. He had not eaten, drank any liquids, gone to the bathroom, or moved even the slightest bit for over 2 days. And so then he went over and checked his pulse, and they found that he had died. So they attempted just to shove him into a torpedo tube and eject him. But then at that very moment, Ed Harris, he woke up. And he asked them what they were up to. And then he explains that he gets 48 hours of sleep every night. That's how actually his like routine. And his resting heart rate is about 8. So he went back to sleep for 9 more hours. That was the rest of the movie. And this was all caught on film. And so this wasn't really released to theaters, but then through some creative editing, they re-edited it into a Hollywood film. It's a tiny film. I don't know if you've ever heard it. It's called The Paranormal Activity. It's originally this movie that they made.
I have heard of that one.
Oh, okay.
I didn't realize what it was, though.
I had one more question. I forgot it. So, Final Jeopardy round, famous voyages. Captain Robert Fitzroy of this ship argued that its scientific discoveries supported the Bible. Captain Robert Fitzroy of this ship argued that its scientific discoveries supported the Bible.
Scientific discoveries of this ship supported the Bible. Did it give a year or anything?
No. So think of a great voyage in which great scientific discoveries.
I mean, are we talking like
are associated,
like a global exploration, like a Christopher Columbus type thing?
I'm talking like scientific, like the brain level scientific ventures. I'll give you some hints.
Ventures.
They may have stopped a little bit in the Galapagos. Ever heard of it?
Yep.
Great voyage associated with the Galapagos.
I don't know. I don't know my great voyages, Jamie.
Maybe Charles Darwin may have been putting on his spectacles on such a voyage and discovering evolution.
Okay.
Okay. Well, anyways, it's the USS Beagle.
Okay.
Captained by Fitzroy.
Never would have got that.
It's the Beagle. You guys never heard of the Beagle?
No.
Surprisingly, I don't think that's one.
I've heard of Evolution.
Yeah. So the Beagle was the ship that Darwin was on that went to the Galapagos, and he stopped in all kinds of places and collected all kinds of
Learned about the Galapagos finch and genotyping or whatever the heck it's called.
Oh, he didn't talk about genotyping.
There was something with the Galapagos finch and how it evolved or adapted or some bullshit.
Yeah, it was about isolation and stuff like that. But they didn't. At that point, they didn't know how it all worked. That was like Mendelssohn or whatever, Swiss guy.
Cool.
All right. That's what I got.
Bringing your science.
Should I talk about more evolution stuff or no? We're good.
I think we're good on that.
Yeah. If only the movie Evolution had a submarine, then I could talk about evolution all the time.
Maybe it does, and we just missed it.
No way, because I would know, because it's got David Duchovny in it. We would have found that out long ago.
Maybe there's like a picture in the background of the Phantom submarine. You just missed it.
He pops in a DVD copy of Phantom in the middle of Evolution.
That would be awesome. That would just tie it all together, then, wouldn't it?
All right, are we ready for a countdown?
Well,
or should we do?
Let's
do some news. Yeah.
You guys think I was actually looking up news? If you may recall, a couple weeks ago, I was talking about a lawsuit that was going on between, I think, the U.S. government and a company that had used their submarine and struck the Titanic. If you recall, that company's name was Triton. Well, Triton now has a new submersible 24-seater tourist submarine called the Deep View. So if you're rich enough, I'm sure, it doesn't say an exact price, but you'll be able to go down with 23 other passengers. Doesn't exactly say where it's going to go, but it is a submersible nonetheless that they'll be able to take down.
With windows?
Yeah, yep, it's got windows on the side, and
But we're talking about Windows 95 or Windows NT?
It probably runs off 95, if I had to guess.
Or maybe XP.
Yeah, you gotta keep that shit simple. You don't want anything to go wrong.
It says that this company has done some other pretty breakthrough stuff. Obviously, we've heard about them before, but this seems pretty crazy that it's going to take 24 passengers down. It can go up to 100 meters, 328 feet, which I don't know what all you're going to be able to see that far. It doesn't really say too much about the external lights, so I don't know how much you're going to see once you actually get down far enough, because I assume light probably doesn't go down that far. But it is able to...
How deep does it go?
328 feet, 100 meters.
328 feet.
Is the Titanic within 100 meters?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know about that. It's just the same company is what I was saying. So maybe they might take you out there. I don't know.
I see, because I was going to say, like, I feel like the Titanic is way deaper than that.
It'll probably be like some coral reefs or something they'll do with it.
It was the same. I think it's the same company that hit the Titanic. They now are announcing this. So
yeah, that's still cool.
Overall,
that's pretty cool. I mean, cramming 24 people into...
Yeah, actually, I lied. It's got 10 20,000 lumen LEDs outside, so it'll be able to light up everything. So it's going to be pretty dark down there. But it can be underwater for a full 14 hours, which is pretty crazy to think about. That is taking just civilians down for 14 hours.
So my first question would be, is there a bathroom on this thing?
Doesn't look like it. So you got to bring
Oh, boy.
There's probably a horror movie in the works based off this thing, though.
Yeah, I'm going to be horrified when I'm pounding beers and I have to go to the bathroom.
Do it for a bachelor party and everybody's just super drunk.
It does sound pretty technical, though, and or technological, because the pilot or the captain can use a joystick and a touchscreen to navigate this thing completely. Overall, though, it putts around at 3 knots, so that's pretty slow. We can probably walk faster than that. One of the
By
next
the way,
big...
Titanic is 12,500 feet.
Okay. Yeah, so definitely not getting done to the Titanic then, is it?
It's not going to make it.
No.
But what happens if they push it?
Going past depth charge? Crush depth? Sorry.
Crush depth. There we go. Yeah, going past, going below the depth charges to crush depth. Yes.
Another article I found has to do with Russian spying. I guess French Navy was doing some submarine trials nearby, according to this on May 6th. And this is from our guy that we have referenced a lot, H.I. Sutton. So we know what he's talking about is true. Not too far off from where they were doing this, there was a Russian spy loitering near them. So the general news is that Russians are just keeping tracks on the Navy, the French Navy, for whatever reason. I think we've seen before. I don't think the French Navy really has that many submarines, because I think we've talked about that before in the past, that they were even a generation or two behind where the U.S. was.
The French is like wheeling and dealing. I think they're the ones who sell to Australia and stuff.
I mean, was it them? I thought it was India that sold to them.
No, India's the one with the screen door or whatever. They got the leak.
Yeah, that's true. Exactly. But I thought it was still them. We'll look into it. Maybe you're right. Either way, kind of interesting, I guess, just to think about, in case there is to be another world war. I think Russia would have the ups on the French Navy, and they probably won't be much help again. Let's see here. And then back to speaking of Australia. Another article I found, construction of Australia's future submarine to start in 2024. So if they have been buying, which I'll look into that for you guys, they're finally getting their first contract built with Lockheed Martin of Australia. So pretty large defense contractor company will be working with Australia, so they can be making 12 attack class conventionally powered submarines that'll start in 2024. So they're coming along.
All right.
Did you find any other news? I know you always like to look it up too.
Yeah. So I'm looking at that same place that reviewed this film is called Film Threat. It's an independent movie review site, and they just posted May 6th, 2020. They posted something for a film called Subferatu, a submarine vampire movie. Subferatu 2020. They give it a 4.5 out of 10, so we know it's good. And yeah, so we have another thing to look forward to, I guess. I was just looking for recent things that have come out with submarine films, and that's one of the ones that shot up to the top. Subferatu.
Yeah, that's kind of adjacent to some stuff we've been asking for. I think, weren't we hoping for like a werewolf on a submarine movie?
Yeah, I think this is close.
Wasn't there supposed to be like a lesbian vampire submarine movie?
Ooh.
Well, yeah, so that's different. That was the Pittsburgh, University of Pittsburgh thing.
All right.
Yeah.
Huh. Okay. Thank you. That's all I have.
All right. Let's get a little countdown. Let's finish this up with a countdown.
All right, we are going to count down tonight. Tube 3 ready to fire, sir.
Commence the countdown.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Give it to me.
Got five items for you. So tonight we watched Fitzroy. Found ourselves on a submarine hotel. If you want a similar experience, of course, you can sleep overnight on some submarines. There are a few submarines. If you look it up, I think we were talking about doing that ourselves one of these years as we've been podcasting for a number of years now. But also, there are many other bizarre hotels across the world if you want a unique lodging experience. So we are going to count down our top 5 weirdest hotels in the world. All right. So I tried to avoid like the glorified bed and breakfasts of the world. There's like some, like single room, tree houses, and there's like a dog shaped house. It was like you ascend a set of stairs and you're like inside of a dog. It's painted
Like
in
an
the shape
actual
of
dog? Oh, I see.
yeah. And yeah, the body of the dog was like the room proper, and then there was like a loft up like its neck and head area, but like it's just one room.
That's cool.
It's not really a hotel. It is cool. It was actually a pretty impressive looking build, but that's not what I think of when I think of a hotel.
But can I ask another question?
Go
So,
for it.
like theoretically, if old Mother Hubbard put the shoe on Airbnb, is this on your list?
If it's just like one room or
And
maybe
that's a whole
two
house.
rooms,
It's
too.
she lives in the
If
shoe.
it's a house,
That's the whole house.
that's Airbnb.
But it's Airbnb. But it's Airbnb.
No, that wouldn't make the cut.
Okay, got it.
I want the more hotel
That's all I know.
experience. I want the bellboys. You know, that's what we had here on the Fitzroy. I want that limp-wristed, milk toast bellboy experience. So number 5, we're going to start off with Hotel Costa Verde in Costa Rica. This hotel is an upcycled Boeing 727 perched high in the jungle canopies of Costa Rica. The interior of the fuselage has been hollowed out and paneled with warm teak wood and boasts an impressive view of the jungle and sea. At Hotel Costa Verde, you may finally be able to fall asleep on a plane.
Just a quick question about that. Have you seen pictures of this guy?
I have, yes.
Does it look like a plane inside?
It does not look like a plane inside. It definitely looks like a plane crashing through the jungle on the outside, though.
But what's the point?
I don't know. It's still a tubular fuselage. So I mean, you might realize, and you got all the airplane windows. I mean, you realize probably being inside, if you were knocked unconscious and dropped in, and you'd be like, "What? Where the hell?" You'd probably think you're like in a boat or some sort of repurposed vessel.
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah. Like you gotta warm it up a little bit. I mean, airplanes are famously uncomfortable. I wouldn't try to just directly translate an airplane over to being a hotel. You gotta do some work in there. It actually is very warm looking. Again, I did the little write up here. It is like you go right into like this nice woodworking is incredible. Nice little bar area and everything. You go back into the lodging section and all that.
See, I would go the opposite. I would make the rooms just the aisles, and then you could rent up to. I mean, 3 people can go into that, or if you wanted some extra room, but each person would just like stay in an aisle, so it'd be a very tiny room.
Okay, I could see that too. I didn't do a virtual tour, so that very well could be similar to how they've actually got the room set up. I just kind of saw the bar area. I'm selling these to you guys. I'm kind of like the TripAdvisor agent, the travel agent here. So you guys will have to tell me which one I convinced you on. All right.
Okay. All right. Did you come up with that slogan yourself?
Yes.
Okay, that might have sold me right there.
Hang on, I gotta let the cat in. It's in my window. You're gonna have to wait. She's kind of working away in the window now. All right, there she goes. Talk amongst yourselves. I gotta let her out.
No, we're the best. We're just the best podcast. That's all I gotta say. Kyle can edit this out, but I actually would prefer if he didn't, because we had that one time when the cat was like playing guitar or something.
Oh, yeah.
Hanging on the guitar. That was great.
I'm back. Yeah, she did play the guitar one night. Number 4, we got Sea Ventures Dive Rig, Malaysia. This hotel is a decommissioned oil rig that has been repurposed as a scuba diving staging area and lodge. The hotel is 30 minutes away from Sipadan Island, perhaps, Malaysia, referred to by some as the scuba diving Mecca. The hotel boasts a 4.5 rating on TripAdvisor, but appears to be a little more utilitarian than cozy. Sea Ventures serves as a popular spot for scuba training and credentialing.
Seems like you have to really be into scuba diving for that one.
Yeah.
I think so. All the pictures of people that have lodged there were in their like scuba crew, like 5 or 6 guys and gals gathered around in wetsuits and everything. So
yeah, that kind of reminds me. So when I did vacation in Wyoming, I stayed at a place that was very much like a snowmobiling place, but it was one of the nicer ones. So you didn't actually have to snowmobile. We snowmobiled like a little bit, but then we did a bunch of other stuff. Whereas they were telling me like there were a bunch of snowmobiling places nearby that were like no reason to stay there unless you were snowmobiling. Like it was similar to what you're describing, like utilitarian, like people came in, to snowmobile, and that's it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that might be the vibe here as well. I guess you only have like 3 or 4 people lodging on the rig maybe at a time, and the rest is like all the crew trying to like, you know, service you and your fellow shipmates there with food and amenities and all that good stuff. Number 3 is the Ottoman Cave Suites in Turkey. This hotel is one of multiple cavernous hotels carved into the ancient volcanic stone of the Cappadocia region. The rich furnishings, hardwood floors, and underlighting combine to create one of the more visually captivating hotels on my list. The walls are scalloped, visibly indicating each individual chisel mark that made your room a reality.
That sounds nice.
It is a pretty impressive looking room. It's hard to imagine being in a cave, but it is done in a way that it looks very clean, warm, inviting, rich. Pretty impressive looking hotel. Yeah, the hardwood floors and the rugs and everything spruce it up a little bit. Number 2 is the Zondhotel Os. Created by Dutch sand sculptors, Zondhotel Os is a habitable sandcastle in Os, Netherlands. Its exterior looks like a giant sandcastle complete with turrets and towers, while the interior is remarkably true to the theme. Only the beds, curtains, furnitures, and appliances are non-sand.
How do they get it to stay up?
I guess there's hardeners and other additives they mix into the sand that keep it sturdy, and they promise you aren't going to get like sand in your feet and toes. So,
wow, interesting.
Whatever they've done well.
Where is that at?
Yeah.
You said Australia?
No, the Netherlands.
Oh, Netherlands. Excuse me.
I guess they did it a few years ago, and they've made an additional hotel every year since across Netherlands, I guess.
Anakin Skywalker would hate that one. He hates sand. It gets everywhere.
Yeah, he's lived enough in the Sand Village. It's probably not even like unique to him.
No, he's probably like, this is my life. I may as well be drinking blue milk or whatever.
Number 1 is Hotel Palacio de Sal, Bolivia. Anybody know their Spanish there? Sal. Structural.
Sun?
Not Sol. Sal. S-A-L. Structurally, this hotel is built almost entirely of salt, including its walls, ceilings, and floors. Much of the furniture and artwork is salt-based as well. It is built at an elevation of 12,000 feet on the world's largest salt flat, Salar de Uyuni.
Can I ask a clarifying question?
Sure.
You said most of the artwork and stuff is made of salt?
Most of the furniture and artwork is salt-based as well. There'll be like a base, for it made out of salt, and then there'll be an actual like cushion on top of it and things like that.
I see. Okay, that makes more sense. Because I mean, we're all kind of salt-based in some ways.
Sure.
Like wood. I mean, everything's got salt in it.
Well, I mean, this is like salt licks, salt blocks, salt bricks. Everything is like, it's like sandstone, but saltstone. So we have the plane hotel, the airplane hotel. We've got the oil rig turned diving rig hotel. We've got the Ottoman Cave hotel. We've got the Sandcastle hotel, and then we've got the Salt hotel. Where are you guys staying?
Do you want us to answer based off of your description? Because I also Googled them to see what they looked like.
If you Googled them and looked them up,
actually, yeah, because I'm going based purely on description. It'd be great to hear what you say, having seen them.
Okay.
I know which one I'm going to.
Based off of original from your description, and then when I looked it up, I'm the third one, the one in the cave.
Jamie?
And so I think I can even rank them. Like I would probably go cave, plane, salt, sandcastle, and then last place is that diving one.
All right. Yeah, that's pretty close to what I was going to do. I agree. I'm going to go with the Ottoman Cave Suites. Probably not the most safest location in the world right now, but,
sure.
easily one of the more impressive looking pieces of architecture I've seen recently. This place looks pretty cool, and I encourage everyone to kind of check it out and see what I'm talking about. But that is my top 5 weirdest hotels for the episode, The Fitzroy.
Very nice. Very nice.
Well, that's pretty good. And oh, wait, I actually just noticed that I think Kyle just got onto I think he's going to give us his review real quick.
Oh, okay. Hey, Kyle.
Hey, how's it going? I'm Kyle. I give it a 12 inches.
Whoa. Kyle, you really love this movie, huh?
No, I really loved it. It was really great.
Wow. I hope that is coming from a genuine place in your heart, that you really did love this and you aren't trying to woo any of the cast and crew to come on the show and interview with us.
Nope. I really loved it. It's my favorite movie I ever made. In fact, I now live this movie. It's now my life.
Oh, well, thank you very much for jumping in, Kyle. I realize you've been busy with the wife and kids. Send my best, and have a good night, bud.
Well, I abandoned my wife and kids for this movie.
Thank you for listening to Submersion. Don't forget to subscribe for new episodes every Thursday. If you like what you heard, please leave us a rating wherever you listen. Want to interact with us? Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. We also love to get messages from all of you. If you have a suggestion, a comment, or just anything you'd like to share, please email us at macestudios@gmail.com.